Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak to you as a conference and to stay and hear your debates and listen to what you're discussing here this week. And I feel really privileged to be able to come here and also to be working alongside the Bakers Union. And just to give you a little bit of background about our campaign, Youth Fight for Jobs, and tell you perhaps a little bit about who we are. Well, we were set up in 2009 in the wake of the financial crisis because young people, I think, are at the real sharp end. Everyone who's working class is suffering as a result of austerity, as a result of cuts, as a result of all of the terrible policies that are being implemented by the Condemned government. But I think it's fair to say that young people in particular are facing a really bleak outlook as a result of what is taking place. And when we set up our campaign, we thought that it was likely that youth unemployment would rise to over 1 million under this government, and that's actually what has happened. And we've been fighting for decent jobs for young people. We've engaged in things like organising a recreation of the Jarrow March, reclaiming some of the traditions of the unemployed workers movement. We marched 30 unemployed young people from Jarrow right up in the northeast of the country all the way to London, 300 miles. And we've been trying to highlight the plight of young people who are out of work. But the other thing that we've been discussing is, well, what kind of work are young people going to be able to go into when they do get a job? Because I think modern day unemployment kind of looks a little bit different to how it has done in the past. Increasingly, there's hundreds, thousands of people, young people in particular, but people of all ages, who are kind of left on the fringes of employment. Officially, they don't show up in the statistics. So the likes of Cameron and Osborne can say, well, it's a success, youth unemployment is falling. But in truth, thousands of us are on zero-hour contracts. We're faced with the daily problem of having to wait for a phone call to find out if you're going to get any hours. And you're faced with not knowing whether or not you're going to have enough money from one month to the next to pay your bills, to pay your rent, and just do some of the normal things which ordinary people want to enjoy in their lives. And that's the kind of work which this government is offering young people, which this system offers young people today, and we don't think that that is good enough. And we're really pleased and proud to be part of the Fast Food Rights Initiative, which is a coalition of groups, as Ian has mentioned. And obviously central to that is the Bakers Union, which initiated it, but we're proud to be a part of it, and we're proud to be working alongside other organisations as well. And I think that there were two main inspirations for the Fast Food Rights Initiative, if I am correct, and one of them was the really inspiring victory that was won by Hovis workers, and I want to join this conference in saluting those workers in their struggle. Because I think that that victory is actually something which has given a kind of lift to the whole movement. It's shown that these contracts can be beaten and that we can stand up and fight back. But I think the other inspiration that there's been for this has been an international inspiration. And I think that internationalism is actually a great tradition which is at the heart of the trade union and workers' movements. And in that spirit, I want to start off my speech, or my remarks, I suppose, with a message that's come from the United States, from Seattle, because perhaps some of you will have read, it's been reported in our own newspapers here in the UK, that in Seattle, workers, particularly fast food workers, have just won a marvellous victory, and that has been in the implementation of a $15 an hour minimum wage, which is going to lift thousands of people out of poverty. So I have a message from Jess Spear, who's the organising director of the 15 Now campaign in Seattle, and she said, here in Seattle, we are celebrating a huge victory, a $15 an hour minimum wage. This is a victory for a movement started a year ago by fast food workers walking out in strike action. Here in Seattle, this was galvanised by the election of Sharma Sawant, running on an independent socialist programme, and including $15 an hour as her central demand. She won a council seat at the end of 2013. Sharma followed her victory with the launch of the $15 Now campaign in Seattle and nationwide. In Seattle, we were very quickly able to organise a programme of protests, rallies, action groups in every district. This formed the basis of a huge grassroots campaign bringing together trade unions, community activists and others to form a powerful alliance. The culmination of this was on Monday, June the 2nd, where the Council unanimously agreed to raise the minimum wage. This is a victory for the grassroots campaigns and should be seen as a beacon of resistance. When workers and communities come together, they can win. But this victory, important as it is not enough. We need to spread the idea of $15 an hour across the states and internationally as well. That's why the recent International Day of Action, which we participated in here in Britain on May the 15th, was so important. It reinforced the importance of fighting for a living wage. We want to build international links and to learn from each other, where we win and how best to build the struggle. That's why we are sending a message of solidarity to this conference of the Bakers, Food and Allied Workers Union. We know that you have been vital to building the movement of fast food workers in Britain, and what we've done in Seattle shows what we can do when we stand together. We wish you the best of luck for your conference and in your struggle. And I think that was a really inspiring message from Seattle, and I will say that if you do want to hear from some of those activists in person, and you want to come to another conference in July, on the 5th of July, the National Shop Stewards Network are going to have a speaker there from Seattle, so please pick up a leaflet from that on your way out. And I think that that example is brilliant because it provides another example of how we can win. And I think that that movement has electrified the situation across the US, but I think that that struggle is going to spill over beyond the bounds of that country, and it's going to come to the UK too. So I want to just say a little bit about what we're fighting for, why You Fight for Jobs is involved with fast food rights, why we're working with the Bakers Union. And let's look at the kind of conditions which fast food workers are enduring in this country. And I think endure is actually the right kind of word to use. Because if you work in McDonald's, if you work in KFC or Burger King or Subway, you don't begin your week secure in the knowledge of when you're going to be working and when you're going to have time off. You don't know when you're going to need childcare for your children if you've got a family. You don't have any firm idea of how much your paycheck is going to be worth at the end of the month, and you don't know whether or not you're going to be able to afford to pay your bills. And the power in your working relationship is all in your boss's hands. They've got you where they want you. You're not able to raise a complaint, to raise issues about health and safety, to raise complaints about your legal rights not being observed, because they're saying, well, if you make any complaints, we're just not going to give you any more hours. It's an open season for bullying, and that's the kind of conditions, those are the kinds of situations which make people feel powerless. But what fast food rights is about saying is that actually workers, even workers in fast food, even workers on zero-hour contracts, actually do have power. We're about giving people the hope that comes with knowing you're not alone. We deserve better. There are 5.5 million people on zero-hours contracts, and disproportionately, they are young people. They're living in insecurity, and they're living in fear. And we say, well, actually, that's not good enough. We know that there's enormous wealth in our society. The problem is, it's all in the hands of the small, rich minority. Since 2009, 95% of the wealth increases, of wage increases, have gone to the top 1% of the population. That's the sickening level of inequality which exists within our society, and we're all victims of it. Insecurity and zero-hour contracts, low pay, go hand in hand. Working on a zero-hour contracts all too often means working in poverty, in grinding poverty, with low wages, on minimum wage, on youth rates. And that means for people choosing between eating and heating. It means not really living, just surviving. Well, I think that our movement has always been not about fighting for the right just to survive. It's about fighting for the right to live and to live well. So I support the call for a £10 an hour living wage, a living wage with no exemptions for young people. And the representatives of the bosses, the representatives of big business, the representatives of the likes of McDonald's want to tell us that that is actually too much to ask, that we're being greedy, that really they can't possibly afford £10 an hour for their workers. But let's look at this from the other angle. Who's really greedy in society? McDonald's are celebrating $5.5 billion in annual profits, and yet they want to hold us to ransom. They're saying if we want £10 an hour in a minimum wage, then they're not going to employ us. But the truth is that the source of McDonald's profits is the hard work, the sweat and the toils of the low-paid workers who do the job day in, day out. And what's been shown in the US is that when those workers say, well, I'm not going to put up with it anymore, McDonald's management have a problem, because they do have power. When workers refuse to continue to work for pathetically low wages, McDonald's can't continue to make the profits that they are doing. So they have a problem, and we're the problem that they've got. In Youth Fight for Jobs, we say we deserve a future not for the 1%, not for the rich few in society, but for all of us, for the 99%. And I'm optimistic about what fast food rights can achieve, because I think that McDonald's, Subway, KFC and Burger King are running scared. When we had our protest on the 15th of May recently, McDonald's has sent their communications officer from head office down to a small McDonald's store just because they were so worried about Channel 4 News filming our protest outside McDonald's, and worried about the effect that that would have on workers in that particular McDonald's store, but more than that, on all of those who watched it on the television and who heard about it afterwards. So what we're doing is perhaps in some ways a small start. We're starting off with a campaign which is highlighting the issue, which is telling young workers, you can join a union, you have rights, you can get involved in the fast food rights campaign. But we're thinking big, and let's be optimistic about what can be achieved. If we look to the US, we can see that these people have an appetite for getting involved in the trade union movements, and they want to be able to defend their rights and to fight for better conditions. So I think it's possible that in the next years we can see thousands of fast food workers, tens of thousands, joining trade unions, joining the Bakers Union, and that's the fight that we're waging today. So I want to finish by saying that I think this campaign is an industrial campaign. It's about trying to get people organised. It's about trying to get people fighting, but it's political as well, because we're about sending a message not just to McDonald's bosses, but to the bosses and to the government and the politicians. We're saying that we're not going to put up with a few measly crumbs from the table. We want the right to live well. And I'll finish by saying a message of solidarity from Youth Fight for Jobs to everybody here, because like the Bakers Union, we're hungry for justice, and we hope that you are too. Thank you.